Okay, let's talk about PLC1 or pre-launch content number one. Now, as I've stressed over and over, your launch does not have to be video based. You could do it any number of ways, but these days, most launches do tend to be video based, whether they're direct to camera, talking head style, or whether they're screen capture, and this is a screen capture video. They could be either one of those, or they could be something else. They could be email, they could be blog posts, they could be podcasts, whatever. But in general, I'm going to use the word video because most launches are video based these days. So video one, PLC one, is about the opportunity. I also consider this the journey, where you're showing them the opportunity, them being your avatar, you're showing them the opportunity to change their lives for the better, to increase the pleasure or decrease the pain, to learn to play guitar songs or to learn how to quit smoking. But it's the opportunity for them to change their lives. It could also be the journey that they go through as they change their lives. So that's what PLC1 is all about. Here's the overall I'm going to show this to you over and over. You start with that pre-launch. You move into PLC1, the opportunity, PLC2, which is the transformation, PLC3, the ownership experience, and then eventually the sales page, the sales video, the sales letter. PLC1, 2, and 3. I also like to look at this as the why. PLC1 is the why. PLC2 is the what. And PLC3 is the how-to. That's another way to think about this. So we have those three pieces of content. One of the things that's really important is understanding who your avatar is, who your prospect is, what their pain points are, what their desires are, what keeps them up at night, what are the dangers in their lives, what are the big opportunities in their lives, what do they really want, what are their hot points. What are their top fears and frustrations? What do they really want? What do they desire? And then I like to, often a big part of the story is how you found the solution that you're about to share, how you were able to eliminate those frustrations or achieve those desires, and why have you decided to share it. Now, for me, in sharing Product Launch Formula, a lot of this is tied to my story because I had this issue. I didn't have a business. I needed to create a business. Then after I had a business started, I needed to figure out how to sell and how to sell in in an honest and way, with integrity, with congruence. So it very much was my story. There's a chance that your story might not be your avatar story. For example, I had someone who, came to me, and so they were a psychologist and they were helping people with problems that they never had. And that's fine. You can do that. You can tell the story of your clients and the successes and transformations that they've had. So it doesn't have to be your story. But often with my Product Launch Formula owners, I've noticed that it is about their story that they're sharing. So the overview is that this is about the why. You really need to understand your prospect and what they're looking for and what they're moving towards and what they're moving away from. And then you have to answer that why question. Why should they care? Why should they spend their time paying attention to you? And the why is because of this opportunity for them to have a dramatic change in their life. Even if it's learning to hit a better serve in your tennis game, it's still a transformation of something that they're interested in or they're passionate about. It could be that that guitar that's sitting in their corner, they finally learn to play a full song on the guitar. Or it could be something like I mentioned, they learn to quit smoking, and this makes a dramatic change, not just in their life, but in their children's life, in their grandchildren's life, in the rest of their family's life. But this is why should they care. And to show them why they should care, you have to show what that outcome is, where that journey is taking them to, what the opportunity for them to have a better life with more fun or more fulfillment or less pain. This is just a general recipe for pre-launch, for PLC1. You want to show that opportunity, show how their life is going to positively change, show what it could look like, what their life could look like. Again, with Product Launch Formula, I talk about the before and after. What my life was like before and what it's like after. Before I had a business, before I had a good income, before I had freedom in my life. And then I talk about it after. And I can talk about my Product Launch Formula owners over the years and the transformation in their life. That's the opportunity, to have this vastly different life, to have a vastly greater income, to have a greater impact on the world, to be able to share your work with the world and help people, to be able to have freedom of time, freedom of who you hang out with, the freedom of who you work with, the freedom of where you live. So that's the opportunity that I'm sharing. The opportunity you'll share will be very different, but you have to think about what that opportunity is and then show and tell how their life is going to change. Number 2 there is positioning. What is your positioning? Why should they listen to you? Well, a lot of times people look at me and they say, Jeff, you've got this amazing positioning, but the reality is I didn't have it when I started. But you can, just by starting to publish and putting out great pre-launch content, that will show your positioning. In this module, we'll show you some PLC that some of our students have shown, and you can see how they create positioning in their life. The number 3 there is teach. It's important that you just don't go on and on and on and on about the opportunity. People will get sick of that. So you can open up, you can share that opportunity, but then you do move to teaching. Again, just using myself as an example, in my first video, I build this opportunity, I build this positioning, but then I actually go in and I teach the sideways sales letter, and I teach it to a very deep degree. Then number 4, this is the thing that a lot of people miss, is that no matter what you're selling, there's going to be objections. People are going to have objections to what you're talking about, to objections to how their life can change, to whether it will work for them, to whether it will work in their situation. And you need to talk about those objections. You can't just put your head in the sand and pretend they don't exist, because there's always going to be a number of objections. There's usually going to be 2 to 3 really big ones and then a bunch of smaller ones. And you don't need to raise and answer every single one of them, but you definitely need to raise and answer the top 1 or 2. And here's a hint. Just because you answer them in this video doesn't mean then they're gone forever. You need to keep on coming back to them and continue to answer them. Just don't pretend that they don't exist. Don't ignore them. That's one of the real powers of Product Launch Formula. It gives you these 3 videos, plus your sales video, plus the email copy all in between, to continually talk about these objections and answer them. Because that's one of the most effective ways to make sales, is to remove the objections. And then you want to foreshadow what's coming in PLC 2. You let your people know there's another video coming and something that's cool that's going to be in it, and you try to hook them. This is just like TV does this really well right now. Serial TV, like they do a really good job of creating these threads and letting you know and foreshadowing that something's coming. And then you want to end your video with a call to action, which is usually ask for a comment on your blog or in social media. So that's just this overall framework. You open with showing the opportunity, then you position yourself, then you teach, raise and answer objections, foreshadow the next video, and then call to action. Get people to comment. So here is sort of a little formula I often use, or here's some examples. I started off with, I'm a lot like you, or I think we're a lot alike. This is where I was. And when you say that, this is where I was, that situation that you're in is a situation that you want that to be a situation that a lot of people can identify. A lot of your avatar, they can identify with where you were. For me, when I was starting out, I had very little money. I had absolutely nothing going on. I didn't have a business. I didn't have a list. I didn't have this expert positioning. I didn't have a lot of people following me. I was starting from zero. And even if the people I'm talking to are not starting at zero, a lot of them are much further advanced, but they can identify with that. Then another powerful thing is to share why, basically what you aspire to be, where you wanted to go, and then how you discovered whatever it is that you're sharing, the secrets. Here's a couple of secrets I learned. And I mean, for me, this is very simple. Like when I started out doing my first launch, I didn't know how to sell. So I accidentally almost created this new formula, launch formula process, because I didn't know the traditional way to sell. So I invented something new, and it just so happened it worked really, really well. And I kept on doing it over and over and over and over and over and got better at it. And that's all part of the story that I share. It's 100% true. It's very, very powerful because it also aligns with a lot of people. They don't feel comfortable with selling. They don't want to feel cheesy. They don't want to feel slimy. They just want people to think they're cool and they're nice. And it just so happens Product Launch Formula aligns with that. And the reason I created it and the way I created it aligns with that because I felt those same ways. So it all lines up perfectly with what many of the folks, many of my avatar are thinking and feeling. Okay, so moving along, these are some of the things that you want to avoid. So this is this first bullet is, it says avoid mentioning your product or that you're going to be making an offer. And this is not a hard and fast rule. And I know when you're teaching, people love hard and fast rules. If you actually look at my first PLC, I actually do mention Product Launch Formula. I mention it a couple times. So this is one of the deals where you can start this idea of seeding, that's where you start to mention your product and your offer ahead of time. And you can, it all depends on your first video and how comfortable you feel and how strongly your positioning is, but you actually can mention it in PLC 1 if you want. Most of the time, especially early on in your launch career, most of my PLF owners will avoid this, but this is one of those where if you're advanced enough to know when you can break the rules, then you can mention it. And clearly I've done a lot of launches, and in my first PLC, I do actually mention the product itself. The bullet point, the second one here is avoid making your videos too long. There's this old saying, your marketing can never be too long, it can only be too boring. And we all tend to get a little boring when we start talking about ourselves and talking about our products and talking about our business. So you have to be really, really careful here. I think that you should, when in your first launch, probably aim at 12 to 18 minutes. It's not going to be easy. It's harder to make a really short, tight video. Now, my first PLC is closer to 25 minutes. I've been doing this a long time, and I work really, really hard. But don't make them longer just to make them longer. Don't say, Jeff did a 25-minute video, so I'm going to do a 25-minute video. If I could make that video in 23 minutes, I would. If I could make it in 19 minutes, I would. But to fit everything in there, I had to make it that long. And I do a lot of things to keep it moving quick and moving as quickly as I can and make it as tight as I can. So don't make your videos long just to make them long. Make them as short as you can and still tell the entire story. And then this bottom one, avoid having any other links or distractions to your pre-launch page. Incredibly important. When you got them there, watching your video, watching your PLC, you don't want other links on the page that could take them other places. You want to hold their attention. You just want to be super focused on getting them to consume that content. PLC 1 is super important. I probably spend as much time on PLC 1 as I do on PLC 2 and PLC 3 combined. It's just, this is the one that sets the tone for your entire launch. So PLC 1 and your sales video, probably the two most important pieces here. PLC 2 and 3 are important, and I'll walk through the checklists or the whole formula for those as well, but just make sure, just nail PLC 1. That's the most important.